This is a question I wanted to ask. It hits my head once every year when I'm booking a hotel for a vacation. Hey, why is the room rent so high? Okay. So what I'm asking is this: 12 months in a year, which are the ones that are the highest from a revenue perspective? How do room rents, move up and down? For example, like here we are in the month of May. I know that a property or a place like Udaipur or Jaipur where it's very hot.
Yeah.
Hotel rates are actually down right now, so it's
Yeah.
probably a good time to go there if you can
Yeah.
take the heat. So in 12 months of a year, what's your season? Which part has the most revenue for you?
So it really depends on the location. For example, we have properties in Gir and Ranthambore. So definitely the highest revenue is generated when the visibility of the
The
tigers or the
season is there. Yeah, yeah,
lions
yeah.
is the highest,
Which is summer, I guess.
which is not
March to.
summer. It is Jan, Feb,
Ah,
and then September, October.
okay, okay.
And even for the other properties like Udaipur, Pushkar, it depends on the weddings that we're doing. So usually, and also on the festivities.
Okay.
So during Diwali, you will have the room rent to be a little higher. During Holi, you'll have Holi is very high.
Yeah.
New Year packages, New Year's is pretty
Yeah,
high.
yeah.
Off season for our brand in particular, I would say is let's say May, June,
Okay.
and then August, September.
Folks, welcome to PaisaVaisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter, and we continue our sub series on how businesses work. We're talking hotels today. My guest, Ashutosh Goyal, Director, Partner, and Brand Head, Ananta Hotels and Resort. We're going to talk about the hotels and hospitality industry, how it works, what differentiates it, revenue drivers, cost drivers, all of that. Ashutosh, welcome to PaisaVaisa. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you here. So, a background about Ananda Hotels. I was in Udaipur just about 1.5 years ago and I noticed the property out there. It was on the hills. Very beautiful. I wish I had stayed there. But tell us about the various properties you have, the journey of Ananta, what they do, all that.
So Anupam, we were never hoteliers before. We were into garment exporting. So we used to supply to all, to the UK, US, Europe. But then in 2000, other countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, their labor cost was dropping down significantly. So a lot of other nations were looking at these countries rather than India. So that's when we decided to venture out into something different. And it was the early 2000s when hospitality was really entering India. International brands like Marriott, Radisson, Hilton were making a prominence. So because we didn't know anything about hospitality, we decided to take on board a brand. So we got Country and Suites by Carlson. That was our first project in Jaipur.
Wow.
So we learned from them and we understood the importance of having a brand. Today, Radisson might be having around, let's say, 20, 30 of their own properties, but rest of their 15,000 properties are franchised or management. So that's when we realized the importance of having a brand. And my grandfather decided that let's start our own brand. We started our first property in Pushkar. Pushkar was a very unexplored destination, a hidden gem in Rajasthan. No one really knew about it, and the resort culture was not there in Rajasthan. So we decided to make a property there. We were really criticized in the beginning because who makes a resort, and that to a Balinese themed resort in Rajasthan?
Wow.
So, but the concept was giving a very global experience to a very local crowd.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we started Pushkar. It's very close to my heart. 88 room property, 7 acres. And after the success of Pushkar, we moved to Udaipur. Again, the big fat Indian wedding concept was really growing in India, and especially Rajasthan was something that a lot of weddings were. A lot of people were eyeing Rajasthan. So when we looked at Udaipur, it's the city of lakes, and ideally we should have made a property in the lakes, but my grandfather found this beautiful patch of land in the Aravali ranges. It's a 90-acre patch.
Oh boy. Okay.
So there was a lot of criticism that happened that why are we doing this? Why in the mountains and very close to the village? There was nothing there.
Yeah.
So when we were making this property, even I was in college that time. So when I used to visit with my grandfather, and I actually used to wonder कि इधर कुछ बन सकता है. But we played along the contour of the mountains, did not break the mountains, did not even the trees, the older trees, we did not shift them. We shifted the cottages based on the trees.
Okay.
So we were very conscious about that, and we started with 100 rooms. Now we are around 264 rooms
At
on
the
a
Udaipur property.
Udaipur
Wow.
property. We have two banquets. One is 16,000 square feet. One is
Wow.
8,000 square feet. There are 16 different venues to choose from if you're doing a wedding there.
Hmm.
So the vision was solid, I feel. And today, after our property Taj Aravali popped up, Aurica popped up, there's a Fairmont that's coming on the same road. ITC Mementos has come there. So I think if the vision is solid, anything and everything is possible.
So how many properties do you have in total as of now?
As of now, we have around 18 properties, but that also encompasses the ones that are on franchise or on management, revenue share, lease.
Sure.
So we're playing along with those models as well.
Okay. Let's talk about your journey. Your third generation, right?
Yes.
How has that been as an experience to you? I mean, like, did it happen that when you were in college, you knew that this is what you're going to do? Did you have a different point of view? Also, when you run this business, what are the learnings that you get from your father and your grandfather?
I was born into fashion, like I told you, we were garment exporters before, so I really wanted to get into fashion. But I'm also a very creative person. So hospitality also is a very creative profession. Ananta as a whole, if you see of it, we are three generations working together. It's basically my grandfather, my uncle, my cousin brother, and I.
Okay.
I lost my father 2 years ago,
Okay,
unfortunately.
sorry about that. Yeah.
So the four of us are working, and I feel the old and the new, the juxtaposition of the old and the new creates a beautiful story. So his experience, my grandfather, my uncle's experience, and our new found knowledge, I think that creates a perfect balance.
Yeah.
So I joined the business in 2019. I was very passionate about marketing, branding. So started with that, then took care of a little bit of procurement, and I'm also taking care of investments right now.
How does it work? Like, let's say you wake up in the morning and say, Dadaji, mujhe yahan hotel kholna hai. So is that as easy as that, or on a more serious note, how do you guys figure the location? Because I think, is that the starting point of choosing a hotel?
I think location is very important, but after the location, what we look at is the aura of the place. That's something very important. Today, whenever we are planning, the location might be great, but what we are a very spiritual family. We go there, maybe we sit there, close our eyes. The energy, the aura, the vibration of the place also plays a major role, because your guests are coming in your property. They should leave with positive vibrations. You can figure that out if you like close your eyes and actually meditate in the property. So that is
Very
something that
interesting.
we also look at.
Which was the most recent property that you opened?
The recent, actually, we are in that opening phase. We are opening one in Ajabgarh.
Okay.
Ajabgarh is very close to Sariska.
Okay.
So it's like 3 hours from Delhi, 1.5 hours from Jaipur.
Okay.
So we are always looking at unknown destinations.
Right. So what was the thought process behind that? Let's use that as an example to make our viewers, our listeners understand how you approach that property, broke ground on it, started investing in it. What was that process
I
like?
think so. We had a massive land bank earlier. I think Ajabgarh was a land that again my grandfather procured long back. So today the value is pretty high, but that time he was getting a very good deal out of it. The vision was to buy the land, and then when the land prices increase, he wanted to sell it.
Yeah.
But then we got into hospitality, and I think it's a beautiful destination. There are so many unknown forts there. There's a temple in the property which is 200 years old.
Wow.
So we are planning to create a wellness destination there, a lifestyle wellness destination, because I think wellness is prominently lacking in the northern region. So that is something that we look at.
And have you focused on the north and the west as your areas where you want to be, or are you in the
So
long term?
we all live in Jaipur, so Rajasthan is our
Okay.
home state.
Yeah.
So it's easier there. Now we're expanding into Gujarat. We are looking at Himachal, and we're also looking at Karjat,
Closer home, nice.
closer home,
Yeah.
Maharashtra.
Please tell us when
100%.
when that comes up. Okay. So we've got location, you said vibration, aura, feel, or whatever you want to call
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
vibe. What else is there when you choose a location? Anything else?
I think the soil.
Mm-hmm.
We are heavily into horticulture. For us, nature is a form of architecture. So in Udaipur, we have planted around 6 lakh trees. The vision was these are all Balinese themed villas. The vision was after 10 years, you won't even be able to see the villas.
Oh,
There'll be trees and dense plantations surrounding these villas.
wow.
So soil is very important. Whenever we are making a new property, we do test the soil because plantation is something that we really look into. And one more thing, once the property is open, I think the GM who's handling the property is very important because his values will be instilled in your head of departments, your team,
Mm,
everything. So
mm. So GM is like the CEO of that specific property.
100%, yeah, yeah, he is.
Okay, so in an industry that's dominated by large chains, because Udaipur's got like the top of line hotel chains out there, so as Jaipur. How do you distinguish yourself? I mean, what are your competitive advantages or how you stand apart from the others?
I think the first thing that we have always done is that we've never really compared ourselves to others.
Mm.
Uh, the reason being because a lot of people, when Udaipur Ananta was made, there were a lot of other properties that popped along the way and still are. And a lot of people do ask me that, are you scared? Are you worried? I always say that, no, today I'm working for the industry. If there are more hotels coming, the industry is booming. Indirectly, we are booming as well. So it's always a learning experience from, different properties, everything that they are doing. And like I mentioned before, we are giving a very global experience to a very local crowd. Most of properties are 100 plus rooms. I don't think there is any other local resort
Hmm. Hmm.
chain in that sphere. So I would urge, in fact, other hoteliers to join us and be a part of the movement.
Nice. Okay, Ashutosh, let's look at it this way that someone who's watching this episode wants to figure how a hotel business typically runs. Let's start with the revenues. We'll come to costs after that. So, for the revenues, what does that pie look like? Is like your number one item room rent, or after that, say it's food. So, what does that pie look like?
Of course, for all our properties, I think the room rent is the highest. That is something that generates the highest revenue.
Yeah.
Uh, Whatever revenue that the room rent is generating the entire year, I think 40% of that also comes from F&B.
Oh, okay.
So that is another component that is coming in. Then we have spa also, I think that would be around 7 to 8% of the room revenue that's coming in. And also, I recently we've also started focusing a lot on experiences.
Okay.
So a lot of people are, travelers these days are not wanting to go out and explore the city. So they are, especially with our properties,
Stay
these are
within the
massive
hotel. Yeah.
properties.
Yeah.
So we are always focusing on picnics and experiential dinners, and you have your after parties and barbecues and things like that.
All of
So
that
that is
adds
also
up.
something
Yeah.
that is an add-on revenue. And then there are other ancillary sources
Sure,
like
sure, sure.
you have your mini bar, you have your breakage is also a
Yeah.
form of revenue. In
Yeah.
weddings, we allocate 2% of whatever is your wedding package
Hmm.
in terms of breakage.
Breakages, yeah.
If breakage doesn't happen, of course we give it back.
Yeah.
But usually 2% of the entire wedding is breakage.
This is a question I wanted to ask. It hits my head once every year when I'm booking a hotel for a vacation. Hey, why is the room rent so high? Okay. So what I'm asking is this: 12 months in a year, which are the ones that are the highest from a revenue perspective? How do room rents, move up and down? For example, like here we are in the month of May. I know that a property or a place like Udaipur or Jaipur where it's very hot,
Yeah.
hotel rates are actually down right now. So it's
Yeah.
probably a good time to go there if you can
Yeah, yeah.
take the heat. So in 12 months of a year, what's your season? Which part has the most revenue for you?
So it really depends on the location. For example, we have properties in Gir and Ranthambore. So definitely the highest revenue is generated when the visibility of the
The
tigers or the
season is there. Yeah,
lions
yeah.
is the highest,
Which is summer, I guess.
which is
March
not
to
summer. It is Jan, Feb,
Ah.
and then September, October.
Okay, okay.
And even for the other properties like Udaipur, Pushkar, it depends on the weddings that we're doing. So usually, and also on the festivities.
Okay.
So during Diwali, you will have the room rent to be a little higher. During Holi, you'll have Holi is very high.
Yeah.
New Year packages, New Year's is pretty
That's-
high.
yeah.
Off season for our brand in particular, I would say is let's say May, June,
Okay.
and then August, September.
So if I look at peak versus off season,
Yeah.
would peak amount for like 70%, 80% of your total revenues, and off season would be like the balance, or is it
65%.
65, 35 is
peak.
what
Yeah.
peak? So
Yeah.
peak really matters.
Yeah, it really matters, and that is when we look at capitalizing
Yeah.
as much as possible.
Cost heads. What are the biggest costs in running this business? And cost head number 1, number 2, number 3.
Number one is, I think, you're purchasing whatever you're procuring for the hotel, and which is, of course, you can't miss out on that. So every year, because of inflation, of course, the cost is also increasing. So simultaneously, so I take care of procurement. So I take into consideration that 12% of my cost, my purchasing, will be increasing, regardless of whatever.
Wow, 12% every year.
12% every year.
Huh. Okay.
So I tell my sales team also that my cost is increasing by 12%. So you have to give out an ARR based on that.
Okay. Okay.
So that is something that is very important.
Are all your properties owned?
Some are owned,
Huh.
some are franchised, some are on management.
Okay. And
Eh,
so how does the franchise model run? Because I'm guessing that for ownership, there's no rent to be paid, because that tends to be a very large component. So
Yeah,
that's taken care of. So
yeah,
like
yeah.
you said, purchases is number 1.
Hmm.
Then what would be number 2 and 3?
Number two would be housekeeping.
Okay.
To maintain a 90-acre property with 264 rooms, it's pretty high. It's
So
pretty massive.
salaries would be there in that.
Yeah.
Wow.
The third thing I was coming to is HR cost.
Okay.
It's ridiculously high for especially Udaipur, because we have a staff of 1,000 people.
1,000
1,000 people.
at Udaipur.
Udaipur.
Wow.
It's a mini city. We have an in-house petrol pump, an in-house water bottling plant,
Wow.
and the attrition rate is very high at the moment, especially after COVID. People are leaving for 500,000 rupees, joining
Wow.
other organizations, actually getting a staff, training him or her, and then
They take the training and go somewhere else.
they go somewhere else.
Yeah, well, that's
So
that's part
a
of life, I
massive-
guess.
I think these three things really
Okay,
have to.
we're done with revenues. We're done with costs. The last question that I want to ask you on the business side is, how does the franchisee model work? As in that case, I'm assuming that there's somebody else who owns the land, has the staff, and you have some kind of revenue share, or how does that work?
Yeah, so sometimes if someone has a land, we have that option. Either we can do a JV where we construct the property and they own the land, and then it works on a revenue share model. Sometimes someone wants to do the entire investment themselves, but they have no hospitality experience. So then we come on board as a management partner from the beginning. Even we help with the construction, we suggest some architects who to hire and all of that. And sometimes there are a lot of times when people have constructed something but they are not confident enough to complete the entire thing.
Sure.
So then we step in. So these are called distressed sales. So then we step in, we help them construct the entire thing, and we take it forward.
And I'm guessing the hotel industry in India runs primarily on the franchisee model. Very few, hotels would have their own property, their own
that's
everything.
very true. In fact, if I had to name, Sarovar has very limited. They've crossed 100 plus hotels, but they are owning only at least, I think, 5 to 6.
Less than,
Yeah, 5 to 6.
So
5, 6
franchisee
hotels.
model is a way to go, because then
Exactly.
the brand gets to offer what it's known for,
Yeah,
which is the
yeah,
customer
yeah.
experience. And
Yeah.
for you, if you were to choose between the two, let's say you're going to a new city and you have both options open. You've got a franchisee also sitting there waiting, to take your brand and start hotel. And let's say that you also own your property. How would you choose between the two?
I think I know it'll take more time to create your own property and start from scratch, but I would prefer that more.
Okay.
Because in a franchisee model, you're working with other people, and sometimes your alignment doesn't happen.
Okay.
So that time there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of issues, and then you have to find some common ground, and half the
Yeah.
time is wasted in figuring that out.
Profitability of both models? Owned is more, I would assume.
100%. Own is more, but the investment is also more.
Ah, okay.
In franchise, you're barely spending anything.
Yeah, it's just the brand that you're getting in,
It's
and
just
then
a brand, you're getting a royalty. So I think
let's talk about the customer experience, right? How do you guys created? What are the investments required in terms of time and money? What is that like? I mean, there's one thing about the property itself being a customer experience. When someone looks at it, goes on the web, does his search, and it comes up. That's one part. But when someone has booked a room and is staying there for 2 or 3 nights, how do you guys create an experience for them?
I think thinking more from a consumer perspective rather than your own perspective. So we are very strong on the feedback. We are always creating different kind of experiences. Like in Udaipur, our property is right next to a village. So sometimes these ladies, we call these ladies from the village, they'll come with their chulas
Ah,
and
okay.
they'll make chula ki roti. So we are trying to give that local flavor wherever. In Pushkar, for example, we have this artist who has this. It's something like a drum, but no one's ever seen it. He claims that this was formed in Pushkar, and you cannot find this anywhere.
Wow.
So and after COVID, he didn't have a platform to perform or anything. But actually, get him there, and he talks to the guests. That I think that personalization also
Yeah.
really helps.
Okay. So, what would your marketing strategies be like? I mean, would you go on social media, run campaigns, or how would that work?
So we are very strong on online marketing. We are definitely running a lot of ads. And since I'm handling marketing, I am very strict about this one policy that we are very authentic. Today, I will not take a stock image of a sushi and put it on my Instagram if I'm not serving that kind of sushi. So even if it's not looking great, I will still tell my team to put it because that is real. Today, I don't know, I don't want to compare, but there might be a lot of hotels who are taking a lot of stock images and posting it on the Instagram. But then when the customer is actually going to the property, he's not finding it there. Today, what we show who we are. So that is something that a lot of people like about us. And when it comes to offline, we are always collaborating with similar brands who have a similar mindset. So we have recently collaborated with this brand called Rajasthan Studio. Again, their job is to give the lost artists, the lost chefs of India a platform. So I
Yeah.
think that is something that we.
What's the role of whatever content creators, influencers, brand ambassadors in your line? I mean, do they make a difference? Do they not make a difference? Is the property and the experience
It
enough to
really
push?
depends property to property. I feel, don't take me wrong, but a lot of people are trying to become influencers here. They're buying followers, but we are more focused on, like, for example, we have three sectors. We are focused on wildlife, spirituality, and wellness. So whenever we're inviting people to the respective property, we are trying to call people from those domains. So that really makes a
If
huge difference.
an influencer just lands up one fine day at your property and
See,
says,
we
"मैं
are
तो बहुत
hospitality people. If they land up, we will treat them like kings and queens.
yeah, but they ask free of cost में तो हमको हम publicity करें तुम्हारे लिए यार, come on, how can you
A
ask
lot
money
of
for them?"
offers come that way.
Yeah.
We usually ignore them.
Okay.
But if
Huh.
they do land up at the property, we will treat them as good as we treat any other person.
Yeah, I mean hospitality is different that way, na? It's
Yes,
very
yes,
different
yes.
from
100%. I
most of the
think
industries.
I'm reading this book. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Huh.
There's a very beautiful statement in that book. It says service is black and white, hospitality is color.
Wow.
So service, everyone and anyone is doing service. It's the hospitality that counts.
Amazing. So, any strategies that you've had that have really worked that you'd like to share with us, online, offline, social, whatever that you've been doing and you've had a good impact with that?
I think the best thing when it comes to marketing, definitely your social media and everything is there. But I think word of mouth is the best form of marketing. Today, we did a total of 120 weddings across all our properties.
120.
Yes. So when
Okay.
people are coming to the property, and especially Udaipur, 264 rooms, so we are hosting around 600 people.
Wow.
So when these guys are coming, you give the best experience to them. So usually what happens is when a wedding is happening, there are at 50, 60 different families who are coming. So they have that experience and then they go back home and then they come back to us that we had come for that wedding. We want to do our children's wedding here.
Hmm.
So I think give the best possible experience. That always helps.
Can you give us a customer coupon code specific for a podcast that कल अगर कोई celebrity का शादी हुआ आपके यहाँ, if someone listening in can get a special entry out there because that's
100%. Yeah.
oh,
I'll,
come on,
I'll,
that
I'll
you're not in
work
control of the invite list here.
that.
I heard about what happened with the whole कौन था वो Vicky and Katrina marriage which happened in some obscure place and it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
insane the kind of stuff they do
yeah,
here.
yeah. No, people go mad today.
Yeah.
Like in terms of weddings, sometimes they want to fly off the trees, and the entrance has to be with.
Oh, okay.
So we recently made a pool, and
Hmm.
it's a two-story infinity pool. So
Udaipur.
in Udaipur,
Okay.
because the first pool actually during summers sometimes we had like 200 people swimming in that pool.
Oh,
So we had to
okay.
create a separate pool.
Okay.
So there was a wedding that was happening, and the bride and the groom wanted to do like a proper decoration around the pool, and they wanted to enter through a boat.
Hmm.
So we were
Through a
like,
boat?
yeah, they wanted to
Wow.
like take the boat because it's a two-storied pool.
Yeah, yeah.
Want to create an entire experience. Take the boat from one pool. Then I don't know how like these I feel the most creative people in the industry are the wedding planners. The things that they suggest is just ridiculous.
Uh,
And they wanted to like somehow through something come down and then again take another boat. I don't know how that works.
but did you do it then
no,
finally?
it wasn't practically possible. So we are also when we are also doing weddings at a property, we restrict the kind of production people who are coming in because they ruin the property.
Okay.
Someone is putting a pole somewhere, their lighting is somewhere, they're cutting trees. It's so we are very particular about our environment. Like I told you, the energy really matters.
Very interesting.
So
So, Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, the movie,
yeah,
was entirely, or most of it was shot
in
at Uday Vilas.
yeah,
And I don't know
Uday Vilas.
whether the demand went up or down after that. It's a very old property. You think you're open for any collabs of that sort if a movie comes and,
Yes, why not?
yeah,
Why not? Yeah,
that can also
100%.
have some impact on
So the only challenge here is that our properties, like I told you, is today Udaipur Pushkar are Bali themed.
Hmm.
We are Rajasthani, but we are not following Rajasthani architecture. So if
Okay.
anyone is fine with that, if they want to experience Bali in India,
Hmm.
more than happy.
Sure. So last few questions now, Ashutosh. How does booking work out here? Do you guys give your stock of rooms to aggregators and then they create the demand for you? Do you have your own website or how does that process work?
I think there are multiple ways here. We have OTAs, of course, Make My Trip, Expedia, and all these. But we are focused on getting the traction more towards the website or to our central reservations team,
Hmm.
because the commissions that the OTAs are charging are ridiculously high. So, and to do that, we are always doing fam tours. There are a lot of hospitality fairs that happen. We are always in touch with. So we have these travel agents also. They are divided into A, B, C classes.
Hmm.
So based on the outreach. So
Okay.
a lot of models work here, but yeah, definitely direct bookings is something that we are more focused on because that saves us money.
Any hacks and tips for our viewers about how to get the right fare at the right time at the right property?
2 a.m. Wednesday.
What is 2 a.m. Wednesday? Are you serious?
Yeah. This is something that I've cracked. 2 a.m. Wednesday.
For all
Lowest
properties or just for
prices.
yours?
All properties.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Folks, there you go. I'll check that out at some point of time. Okay. Future growth. Kya plans? I mean, how do you guys actually, you know what? Let me take one step back. How did you guys survive COVID? What are the lessons from there? How did you guys come out of it? Because that was one of the worst
That was the worst time for
Yeah.
us.
So learnings from there, how did you guys come out of that? And
Yeah, so honestly, COVID was very tough because, and also we barely got any support from the government, I'll be very honest. It was a difficult time because we had to lay off a lot of our staff members, and, once we hire someone, they become a part of a family. So letting go of someone was very difficult. So we had to actually, I remember once, I had this discussion with my grandfather because, you know, like I told you, they become family. So we actually took a loan to pay off their salaries. We were
Wow,
like,
that bad.
yeah,
Zero
yeah,
revenues.
zero
You still have to pay
revenues.
costs.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we still had to pay costs, and a lot of hotels did like lay off their entire staff, but we still kept them because today, if we don't support them,
Mm,
who
mm,
will?
mm.
So that was one thing, but I also look at it as a positive outcome because after COVID, the complete restrictions were not lifted.
Mm.
People were still traveling. You could only travel within India.
Yeah.
That is when people understood domestic hospitality. Today, vacationing for any normal human being was going overseas. But because you couldn't go overseas, you actually experience Indian hospitality.
Mm.
And now a lot of people are following that pattern because they realize that when you go to Europe, you wouldn't have a person taking your bag. You wouldn't have someone asking you, how are you doing? We have that in India.
Okay. Like I was saying, future plans, growth. What do you have in mind now? I mean, what are the properties that you're developing? You just told me about Karjat. What else is there?
So we have signed to properties in Himachal. We are looking at Uttarakhand. We are looking at Punjab. So again, like very unknown destinations, trying to create an entire experience out of that.
Okay.
Um, Apart from that, I'm also running this laundry chain because I think laundry is very unorganized in India. So
Okay.
I think experiential laundry is something that it's called Lavender.
Okay.
So I started that 3 years ago.
So that's like a retail chain. Like
That's
in.
both B2B and B2C.
Okay.
And we are infusing a little bit of that lavender fragrance because
Nice.
I feel ultimately the guest is coming to the hotel to sleep.
Yeah.
So give the best possible experience.
Interesting.
So again, like how my grandfather faced a lot of criticism when he was making Pushkar Udaipur, I faced a lot of criticism कि धोबी वाला थोड़ा ना बनना, अपन hoteliers हैं.
Mm.
But I still feel that if you're giving experience and if it puts a smile on someone's face, I think that's more valuable than generating money.
Amazing. Last question. I usually ask my guests for their favorite books. You just told me one book, which
Yeah.
was Hospitality,
Unreasonable hospitality.
Unreasonable Hospitality. But from a hotelier, I will
Mm.
obviously ask your favorite hotels in India,
Favorite
outside India, whatever, and
hotels.
properties or brands that you really admire. Anything.
So I always admire hotels that have a very strong storyline. I think Aman is one brand. They're doing some amazing work. Anantara, Banyan Tree, and Marriott also. In fact, the way they are onboarding these large chains, and I really have massive respect for their loyalty program, the Marriott Bonvoy program. I
Yeah.
think it's doing really well. So yeah, lots of learning.
It's interesting that you mentioned Anantara. I was just watching Mother of the Bride on Netflix this
I was
weekend.
watching it 2 days back as well. What a property! In fact, my
Was-
mom is going.
Have you
for a
been there? I
birth-
mean, it's just,
No.
it's wild, man. I mean, the kind of.
It is amazing.
Yeah, because I don't know if last year you saw Ticket to Paradise. That's George Clooney and
yeah,
Julia
yeah,
Roberts. That's
yeah,
Italian
yeah,
Bali.
Yeah,
So Hollywood is also onto this whole Asian hotel
Yeah,
kind of an
yeah,
experience. And this
exactly.
Anantara was Phuket.
Phuket.
Yeah.
Phuket.
Oh
yeah.
boy. So I mean, you just mentioned it as a brand that you really
Yeah,
admire.
yeah.
So
No, again, I think I have stayed in the Anantara in Bangkok, and I think the way that they have that personalization experience is amazing.
yeah.
They keep on asking you, how are you doing? And by the end of your stay, they know your names.
Wow.
They address you by your last name. Each and every staff member.
Yeah. I mean, now that you mention it, when I look at the 5 stars out here in India, the experience that they offer could be a Taj, could be an Oberoi. That's pretty much what they also do.
100%.
And they don't,
Yeah.
they just have this thing of going out of their way and I'm pretty sure that you would know that, they get some pretty wild demands from customers, right? Because customers just think that, bhai, hum to aage abhi.
Yeah.
Yeah?
They have, so in our property, it's a especially Udaipur, it's a massive property.
Yeah.
In every nook and corner, we've said if you walk from the reception to this corner, you'll burn these many calories because it's a beautiful walking
wow,
track.
Okay, yeah.
But Indians have this tendency कि अगर मेरे को reception से restaurant भी जाना है, which is a 2-minute walk, they'll call for the cab.
Okay.
So that is a major challenge that we are facing, because we want people to walk, we
Yeah.
want them to experience the property. I know people, we have a lot of foreigners also who are coming, they are only walking.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
also carry their luggage
Hmm.
to the highest point of the property.
Yeah. Which is
But-
what I often wonder when we go to US, Europe. Like you mentioned this,
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
that that's not the experience you're going to get there.
That's why you have a lot of people staying at Heathrow and JFK and not going ahead of that, because they don't want to carry their luggage.
Okay, we are done with the main part of the episode. Now, okay, Ashutosh, some fun questions out here. Okay, so first is 3 pieces of advice to young entrepreneurs who want to invest in the hotel industry.
I think the first thing is be true to yourself. Hotels look like a very elitist industry to walk into, but there's a lot of things that are going in the back. Digitize your processes. Have a strong team, and if I had to add one more, I would say that, of course, like, have a very strong service department.
Nice. 3 qualities to look for in an entrepreneur.
Have a fire in your belly. Take risk, and also build a culture.
Nice. I love that. And a memorable travel experience that like you really look back, think about it and said, wow, that was really good fun.
I have two, in fact.
Oh,
I
nice.
was
Go for it.
2 weeks back. I had gone to Malta. I think that's again a hidden gem in Europe.
I don't know where is Malta. Please help me.
Malta is right below Italy. It's
Okay.
a small island. I think again, like, a lot of people don't know about this, but it's truly and so much rich history, because it was like a trading port between Africa and Europe. And the other one was a solo trip to Nepal. I had done the Everest Base Camp trek.
Wow. How's that?
So that was amazing.
Yeah?
I think Nepal and the mountains there, beautiful.
Where did you stay in Malta? I mean, did you do an Airbnb kind of thing? Or what?
No, actually, you know about EO?
No, I have no
EO,
idea what's
Entrepreneurs
EO.
Organization.
Oh, yeah,
we
yeah, of
had,
course, yeah,
I'm a member, so it was basically a chapter retreat.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't have gone on my own, but because these guys were taking us.
Great experience.
And yeah,
And
amazing.
what was base camp like? 8
It
days,
was
10 days? How long was
It's
it?
a 14-day trek,
Wow.
and you meet the most adventurous people I think I've ever met in my life. There was this guy who was climbing all the way to the top and skiing down,
Wow.
and fearless, completely fearless.
Amazing. Well, here's 2 more memorable travel experiences for you,
Of course.
Ashutosh. And that is a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, Ashutosh Goyal, director, partner, and brand head, Ananta Hotels and Resorts. Folks, that's the brand name, Ananta Hotels and Resorts. You are there in how many places? 18? Did you get that?
18 for now, and maybe 50 in the next 5 years.
Visit their website, visit their properties, check them out. Ashutosh, thank you so much for doing this
Thank
for our
you.
listeners.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
IVM